What's up, guys? We continue to be on a total tear, really. 10 wins in the last 12 days, 10 winning days. 4-1 yesterday, 3-0 in the NFL, although every game was kind of right around the number. It was close, but they all somehow got there. Arizona, I think I might have given it out of 5 on the show. I did have 5.5 on that one, luckily, so it was a win instead of a push. If it was a push, yeah, it's not the worst thing, but obviously, you'd rather have that ticket cash. So the 5.5, the 5.5s are out there. They're pretty abundant by the time I actually grabbed it. So luckily for me, I still think it was the right play, really the right side. So hopefully, people that played it got in on the best number on that they could, and that it was that 5.5. Because you don't expect those numbers that are in no man's land to really matter that much, but they kind of did in a couple of these games. Green Bay with the outright win as a small underdog. That was nice. That game was back and forth. Green Bay, I think, had the lead for more of the closing stretch of it than the Chargers did. Green Bay's defense, the better defensive team out of those two. So holding the Chargers offense in check enough to get that win, that was awesome. And then Minnesota in the night game, man, that got really sketchy as well. A 2-point conversion away from not covering, even though Minnesota, up until that final Denver touchdown, Minnesota had never trailed in the game, which is obviously what you want when you have the underdog. They outplayed Denver statistically. They had, I think they had 100 yards more than Denver or something like that. They out-yarded them significantly. It came down to like the closing stretch. I looked at the stats and like 8 minutes left in the game, Denver only had 8 first downs in the entire game. It's like, how can a team with that few first downs and that miserable an offensive performance wind up winning the game? Well, the answer is that Josh Dobbs throws an interception at a crucial moment, which is like almost like a pick six, almost, but Denver wound up getting a field goal after that one. But Minnesota was, I think, -3 or -4 in turnovers, so that factored into the game quite a bit. Statistically, they should have won the game, and that should have been an easier ticket to cash than it was, but on a 2.5, they still did it, so that's good. Yeah, and then NBA was 1-1, and there's like nothing to say about those two games. One was a really nice, easy win on the Kings, and the other was a horrific loss on the Portland Trailblazers. This in the NBA, man, these teams are close enough. I don't know how any team loses to any other team by like 50, especially when it's in a spot to go against that team that wins by 50. It's really insane. We move on to today, though. College basketball is a big slate again today. There are some really interesting games, some competitive games between some good teams. That's not where I'm going, though. I mentioned that there was I only have one play here in college basketball. I'm still being very selective here, not getting involved yet in most of the card, most of these like preseason tournaments, even though one of these tournaments has like Florida State, UNLV, Wisconsin, Virginia, West Virginia, SMU. Those look like good games. Purdue is up against Gonzaga. UCLA, Marquette, Tennessee, Syracuse. Those are all really interesting games. Those are all in the Maui Invitational, those last 4. I don't even know where those other ones are, but some really crazy games. And UConn's playing Texas, I think. It's crazy, man. A lot of games like this going on. It's wild. And that's in Madison Square Garden there. But where I'm going, though, I'm going off the beaten path, of course, and I'm going to the Golf Showcase tournament here with some lesser teams going on here. There are actually 2. There's another game I have a lean in this tournament as well, but the play I'm actually making, and the line's already moved since I played it. It's moving. I'm fading Long Beach State. I mentioned, I think yesterday or a couple days ago, that there was another college basketball team that was in like a major letdown spot after a huge upset. And I was like, who is that team? I know that team's out there. Who are they? When are they playing? Oh, yeah, it's Long Beach State. Because what did they do in their last game? Well, they just upset Michigan in Ann Arbor. And that was a game where Michigan was blowing them out early in the game. And I think Michigan just really got complacent and must have thought it was going to be an easy win at that point. We're just drilling this Long Beach State team. We're going to win. Long Beach State caught fire shooting and not shooting guns, shooting the basketball. And that's what happened, man. They wound up making a huge comeback towards the second half of that game and making it really competitive, and then wound up winning the game, which is crazy. It was a 14.5 point upset there for Long Beach State in Michigan's own arena. That's a monster upset for Long Beach State. Huge upset. And even though it was like a few days ago at this point, more than a few days ago, it's like after that, like you think the team might be like basking in that win, like really high on themselves, getting a little bit too high on themselves maybe. Now they have to go to the Florida Gulf Coast where, I don't know, are they going to be like going to the beach and maybe treating this as a vacation a little bit as well? I don't know. How focused are you going to be on Illinois State, who's, I think, what are they, in the Missouri Valley? I don't know. After beating Michigan and pulling off that huge upset, like, I don't know. Can you really be that focused on a lesser opponent now, like Illinois State, when you're riding such a high like that? And Long Beach State's laying a lot of points here, 7. So I took Illinois State plus 7. Looks like it's down to 6.5. I don't see the money and ticket percentages on this one on pregame, at least. Maybe I should use a different site at this point, because pregame looks like they're no longer tracking like some of the sharper books that I like to look at, like Pinnacle and I don't know, probably a few other ones, 5 Dimes maybe. I think they used to include them in their numbers. It seems like they might not anymore, and it might just be mostly the like Vegas casinos there. I don't know. I think it's still a pretty good indicator, though. It does help me read the market. But that all aside, we're fading Long Beach State in what I think is a major letdown spot, and that's really pretty much the name of the game here. Coming off that huge win at Michigan, I just don't know how focused you can really be on Illinois State, so that's what I'm going to do. Illinois State plus 7 is the college basketball play. I've been really not playing that much college basketball yet, this season, so we'll do that. And Illinois State's coming off beating Eastern Illinois and not beating them by that much, and they were a 12.5-point favorite in that one. So, well, they beat them by 8, but Illinois State covered the spread, Eastern Illinois, covered the spread there and was winning the game early, so maybe Illinois State wasn't totally paying attention to them, and Eastern Illinois had kind of that, like, little brother situation going on there, so that might cause Illinois State to focus a little bit when you're a big favorite like that and you don't cover the number and you don't have the best game. That might help them a little bit, so they might be in a spot where they're going to turn it around and play better, and Long Beach State, I think, is certainly in a major letdown spot of a major upset of a Big Ten team in their own house, so it's the way I look at that, and Long Beach State had, like, kind of unsustainable shooting numbers in that game as well, I would say. Their shooting percentages were way high in that one. Moving to the NHL, we got one play here. Excuse me. Oh, I'm losing my voice. My voice is awful. Wait, do I have one play or 2 in the NHL? I think I have 2. I have 1 in the NBA and 2 in the NHL. Yeah, so let's go. Let's get this done quickly. The Rangers are at Dallas, by the way, and that's a really interesting game. And normally I would say that Dallas is kind of in a go against because they just had a nice game, or not a nice game, but a big game against, who were they against? The Colorado Avalanche, although they lost. I think it's a big game. I think they have another big game up next that did take out their loss, or their win streak that they had. Excuse me. They had a win streak going. They lost to Colorado, and they have Vegas up next. So you think maybe this is a sandwich, but with a team with a really good record like the Rangers coming in there, Rangers being on a huge win streak, maybe you still focus on the New York Rangers. So otherwise, I would say it's a sandwich spot, but that's why I'm not on this game. I think both these teams are not in the best spots, although especially Dallas. Dallas is up from minus 126 to minus 131 on the money line, though, even though it looks like 87% of the cash and 86% of the tickets on the Rangers. So it looks like the Rangers might have a little bit of the cash discrepancy, but the line has moved up on Dallas a little bit. I don't want to touch it, but it should be a good game. It's a good matchup. And the Arizona Kings are returning from a road trip, but they look like a public home underdog here. So they're in a bad spot because they're returning from a road trip, but the thing that keeps me off of this is they're facing the LA Kings, who are a good team. They're playing really well, so I don't think Arizona's just going to completely lack focus. Even though you have that distracted return home spot, I think when you're playing a good team like the LA Kings, you might still show up for that. And it's not like it's not going to add to that distraction. It's going to kind of negate the distraction to some degree, at least. Arizona's got 76% of the tickets, but 67% of the cash. So it looks like the cash discrepancy is actually on LA with Arizona actually looking like kind of a public home dog, which is weird. And LA's gone up from minus 143 to minus 148 as the road favorite. So the market indicators are on LA. They're fading the Arizona return home spot there. So I would probably agree with it slightly just because I think the return home spot is such a bad spot in general, but I can't get there with it because LA's a pretty good team. So what are the games that I'm on then? I've just eliminated most of the possibilities here. I don't even remember what I'm on. What am I on? Oh, yeah. All right. The first game that I'm on is going to be on Edmonton, the Edmonton Oilers, plus 100. It looks like Florida's gone up, though, from minus 107 to minus 114 on the money line at home. And they have 84% of the cash, even though 68% of the tickets are on Edmonton. So it looks like Edmonton is a public underdog here on the road. I don't see how that could possibly be the case since Florida is the team with the way better record and they're at home and the line looks too easy almost. It's short. The line is almost telling you that Edmonton is the slightly better team here because the line's not even giving Florida quite like home ice there. So you got to think what's up with that. So I don't buy these percentages that the public is actually on Edmonton. I don't see how that could be the case. You got a team, I think Florida's like 10-5 and something, and Edmonton's 5-10 and something. So how could Florida be only favored by a very little bit at home? A line basically telling you that Edmonton is a slightly better team. It looks very suspicious to me. So that kind of puts me looking the Oilers' way already in that case. And again, I don't buy what these percentages are saying. Let's look even deeper here. The Oilers had a nice win streak going because they did only have 2 wins on the season. Then they put together 3 nice wins in a row. Last 2 of them at home, though. Then they went on the road and had a couple days off. So that might have kind of disrupted that momentum. They had to come all the way down to Florida, and they lost that first game in Tampa. But now they're in Florida. They don't have to travel as far for this game. They have 1 day off, and they go to Florida. Florida was a team that was in the finals last year. They're playing really well this year, too, even though they've been playing a little bit less good. Or no, they haven't actually. I thought they'd lost some games recently, but they haven't. And they're actually 11-5, not 10-5. They've only lost 1 game in their last several games. So no, they are playing well. But Edmonton is now out there in Florida. They got that 1 game under their belt, so I think that's good for them. And it was a loss, so I think they're going to be focused on trying to turn that around now. Going to Florida, I think they will be focused on a team that's playing well and that was in the finals last year. Florida, on the other hand, they're returning from a road trip that took them to the West Coast, so that makes me want to go against them, even though they've had 2 days off since playing their last game. They're out in Anaheim, but they went 2-1 on the road trip. They won at San Jose, because who doesn't? They won at Anaheim to finish the road trip, 2-1, and they lost to the Kings in the middle there. A tough game, a 2-1 loss. Big games there. Now they're returning home. Yes, they have 2 days off to prepare for this, but you have a team with a losing record coming in there, even though I think Edmonton is undervalued, as I've been saying. They're a good scoring team, and they were in the playoffs last year. But who does Florida have next? Oh, yeah, they have the Boston Bruins up next, who they did eliminate from the playoffs last year, unfortunately for me. But then this year they played the Bruins once, and the Bruins got revenge against them at home in overtime, though. Tough game. That was a tough game. Both teams, I think, played pretty well in that one. And the Bruins were able to exact their revenge. But it's the Bruins, man. They're one of the top teams in hockey. And you have that up in 2 days on Wednesday. Yeah, this is a bad spot for Florida. Returning from the West Coast with 2 days off, so maybe that mitigates it a little bit, but you have a team with a losing record coming in, and they just started a road trip and dropped the first game of the road trip, and you have Boston up next. That is a look-ahead spot. That's why I'm doing it. I'm going against Florida. I got Edmonton plus 100. Do it. Let's move on to the other one where the market looks like it's against me, too. We're going against Colorado. Is that what I'm doing? Yeah, I'm on Nashville. The Predators, the sex offenders, plus 143. Colorado looks like they've gone up from minus 153 to minus 161 on the road. And I don't even see percentages on this yet, but obviously Colorado's a good team, a better team than Nashville. But just like with Edmonton, are we getting some value here? Is Nashville better than what their record indicates? Like, I think Edmonton is better than their record indicates, and I do think Nashville is better than the record indicates as well. And I think Nashville's getting the value in the line here, also given the spot here. So Colorado's certainly the better team, but they're a chunky road favorite here in this one. And what are they coming off of? Well, they're on a 3-game win streak, but they just won at Dallas 2 days ago. And that's a big game, man. Big win. And they put up a good performance and won that game 6-3. Last 3 games, they put up 5 in a win at Seattle, 8 in a home win against Anaheim, and then went out to Dallas and put up 6 there. Huge win against one of the other top teams in the West, Dallas. Now they have a second straight road game at Nashville. Are they really going to pay that much attention to a Nashville team that's been struggling, a losing team? I don't know. And they have Vancouver up on the horizon, so I think that's a look ahead because you have another team that's in your conference that's playing really well up next. So I think it's a sandwich spot for the Colorado Avalanche, so that's what I like there. I like the Predators. Predators have not been that nice to me this year, but that doesn't sound great. The Predators, man, they're after me. They're preying on me. I like it. I like the spot. I think it's a bad spot for Colorado. And Nashville, they're in a spot. They've lost some games. They were on a big losing streak, but some of it was out on the Pacific Northwest area. Now, yeah, they did not do well on that road trip. They came back home and lost again. Like, a return home is a tough spot to be in. Then they had another loss to the Ducks, who are not playing badly at all. Then they finally turned it around, and they were able to get a win over the Chicago Blackhawks. And even though Chicago's not a very good team, any win that you get could be like a momentum starter. Like, that's going to stop that negative momentum for you. So I think that's the case for Nashville there. So I think that's helpful going into a big game here against the Avalanche. They're staying at home. I think they'll pay attention when you have a really good team coming into your house like the Avalanche. And because he didn't start in net the last game, I think Saros is back in net for Nashville. He's a really good goaltender. He is their better goaltender. So I think it all lines up pretty well in Nashville. That's the play there. And let's finish this quickly. So 2 plays in the NHL there, and now we go to the NBA. NBA, man, I don't know what I can do to comment on most of these games here. I do think the Kings are in a bad spot. They've gone down from -2 to -1 on the road against the New Orleans Pelicans. I forget what game I'm even on here. This was almost a play for me. The market read is on the Pelicans with 58% of the tickets on the Kings, but 60% of the cash on the New Orleans Pelicans. We know Sacramento won last night at Dallas and basically blew them out. So they're in a back-to-back. It's not a good spot for Sacramento staying on the road, but I think New Orleans is in a tough spot too because they just came off 2 games against the Mavericks, winning the second one. Then they beat Denver. Then they lost to the T-Wolves by 1 at home. So even though I think they've had a couple days off now, that's a tough stretch of games to come off of. So that's what keeps me off of this one a little bit. That both teams are kind of in bad spots coming off big games, but I do think Sacramento is in the worst of the 2 spots, so it's only a small lean to the Pelicans there. The Heat Bulls have kind of the zigzag thing going on there where the Bulls were somehow able to get the win against the Heat yesterday, and they're replaying the same game again today, Bulls and Heat, with Miami only a small favorite, and then they are a small favorite again at Chicago. But they look like they've gone down from 2 to 1.5 with 77% of the cash and 81% of the tickets on them. So even though I would lean Miami slightly because of the zigzag situation, the market looks like it's actually going against it. So I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't know there, but I will just stay off of it. And the game that I'm actually on, let's finish it out quickly. New York Knicks against the Minnesota T-Wolves. Even though the Knicks have a pretty good record, above 500 record, the T-Wolves, everybody's been paying attention to them recently. They've looked really good recently, and their record is better than the Knicks by a couple games. They just had that stretch where they beat the Warriors twice. Then, yes, they did get blown out by Phoenix, which I was on, because I'm fading teams after they play that double game against the Warriors. So that was the case there. But they did beat the Warriors twice. They beat the Celtics in that stretch. They beat the Nuggets in that stretch. And they just came off a win against the Pelicans, who they've beaten twice in their good stretch recently as well. But what's the situation here? Well, they only have 1 day off here, and they're returning home from a 5-game road trip, even though the road trip was spread out a little bit. So they've had a couple of days rest mixed in there during between those last couple of games. But they went on a road trip that took them to Texas, then out to San Francisco, back to Arizona, New Orleans. They were kind of all over the place. Now they come back home. They get the New York Knicks, who, while yes, they are a team with a winning record, you're coming off that big stretch. You're returning home. It is a typically distracted spot for a team. And you have the Philadelphia 76ers up next, who are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, whereas I think the New York Knicks still continue to kind of fly under the radar a little bit because they're lower than Boston and Philadelphia there, so they don't carry quite that weight that those teams do. The Knicks are mid-road trip here, or finishing a road trip. They've been on a road trip for a while now. Where are they at here? Got to finish this quickly. Load, damn it, ESPN. Come on. There we go. The Knicks have had 1 day off as well, even though they are in a 3rd game in 4 days, all on the road, and a 4th game in 6, and a 5th game in 8, I guess. It's not the best spot, really, but and a 6th and 9. So their rest spot is not great, but Minnesota's in the worst spot, returning from a road trip. I think the Knicks are going to be focused here, even though they've won all the games on the road trip besides the first game, which was at Boston, where Boston, I think, was focused because the Knicks played them close the first time they played this year. Knicks coming off beating Atlanta, Washington, Charlotte. Not really impressive wins there against some of the lower teams. That's who they've been beating up on. So I think they'll be focused here to play Minnesota to finish the road trip. I like it. Minnesota on the road trip return, and the line's only 3.5, which is really only saying Minnesota's only slightly better than the Knicks, maybe. Minnesota's got 69% of the tickets, but 67% of the cash. So it looks too easy to take Minnesota. I think here to lay like the small price there, 3.5, even though I think it's gone up maybe a little bit from 3. I'm on the Knicks plus 3.5, so those are the plays. Knicks 3.5, Edmonton Oilers plus 100, Nashville Predators plus 143 in the NHL there, and in college basketball, Illinois State plus 7. Let's do it. Let's get it. Let's go. Oh, and Monday Night Football, I still lead to the Chiefs. You can just watch my NFL video to see what's going on there. I think they have the better defense, though, and the market read, I think, is on the Chiefs with 55% of the cash on the Eagles, but 59% of the tickets, and the Chiefs moving up kind of from 2.5 almost to where they're like a 3. Now, so I think people are going to be weighing the Super Bowl revenge too much there. I lean to the Chiefs, who have a bit of the better defense there and have had the uglier offense, which I think keeps kind of the public players off of them a bit because they like the better-looking offense and the Eagles better. That's going to do it. Peace.